Paul's calling from
Yeah.
Colorado to give us the logical reason to believe in God. Pronouns are they, them. Hey, Paul, how are you?
Good. How's it going?
It's a mixed bag today. I'm definitely frustrated at people's inability to present, a reasonable case. But I've also been doing this for a couple decades. So you say you have the logical reason to believe in God. Is it supported by empirical evidence at all?
No.
Is there any way to investigate it and make empirical evidence for it?
Well, I mean, you guys said philosophical arguments are just as reasonable to argue the
I'm sorry, that's not
existence or
an
your
answer to
claim.
my question.
No, there's no empirical evidence for the supernatural.
And are you saying that there can't be, or it's the current state is that there can't be?
As far as I'm concerned, no. Yeah.
Okay. So what is your logical reason to believe in a God that I'm presuming you would agree we can't test?
I think the idea of consciousness and rationality.
Explain.
Okay, so you agree that we are conscious beings. We have rational faculties.
Yes.
Okay, so I personally believe that rationality can't come from blind matter or blind
I don't care.
Physical process.
See, here's the thing. We asked for evidence. You don't have that, and you admit that it's not there. Now you're going to make a logical case for it. But all you're doing is stating your opinion. You're saying, I personally believe that this. We have no reason to care what you personally believe. We have reason to believe to care why you believe. So what is it that convinces you that consciousness cannot arise from material when the only evidence we have of consciousness is something that arises from material?
Well, if you look at evolution, I mean, there have been many predecessors to the human species that have come. I mean, let's talk about the worm C. elegans. We don't see C. elegans sitting around the coffee table.
Paul, my question isn't referenced in any way by evolution or species that came before us. My question was, why are you convinced that consciousness requires something other than the material world?
Because there's no evidence of consciousness outside of, or rationality specifically outside of the human species.
No. So first of all, there is evidence of rationality outside of the human species, but that's also not an answer to my question. My question is, why do you think consciousness cannot arise from the material world?
Because we have no evidence for that happening anywhere. I mean, where's the evidence?
Show me any consciousness that exists absent a brain.
I'm not understanding your question.
What he's saying is,
are brains material? Okay,
yes.
Paul's not serious. No,
what he's saying,
serious,
Paul, what he's saying is that you're saying that there's no evidence of consciousness ever coming from the material world. What we're saying is the only evidence of consciousness coming from anywhere is from the material world. Now, people always call in with every once in a while on this show to see if we have a solution for hard solipsism, which we always concede we don't. But that's neither here nor there. We just can only deal with existence in so much as we experience it, as we are able to perceive it, and what it seems to be saying. But the only explanation for consciousness that we have at our disposal, and you even agree that there's no evidence for the supernatural. The only thing that seems evidentially true is that consciousness is born out of the material universe. That the materials that exist.
Here. So I never. Sorry to cut you off. I never said that there's no evidence of the supernatural. I said we can't empirically test for the supernatural.
So what is the evidence? that we cannot test?
Well, one of the evidence is one of the evidence I'm giving is our ability to ration, right? I mean, it doesn't serve evolution
I'm so
for us to
completely
have
done with
these
Paul. You're a
discussions.
fraud. Paul, you're a fraud. We don't ration. We reason. Ration is when you allot a certain amount of cheese to somebody and a certain amount of meat to somebody else. But also, when we're saying what is the evidence, you said there can be no evidence of the supernatural, and you're inferring that the supernatural exists because you don't personally accept the current materialistic explanations for consciousness. But even if we had no explanation for consciousness, it is fallacious to infer that because we don't currently have a materialistic explanation for consciousness, therefore the explanation is supernatural. And it is a violation of sound reasoning to say that not only is it not a fallacious argument, but it is the very fact that we can reason that supports the notion that it's supernatural. You are engaged in a string of nonsensical, unconnected claims that make me feel like I'm talking to an AI chatbot that hasn't bothered to look into this subject at all. The reality is that we are conscious, and by the way, so are other animals. And we reason, and by the way, so do other animals. All of the available evidence we have for consciousness has consciousness existing seemingly as a product of a material brain, but we have no examples anywhere of consciousness outside of a brain. And at the end of the day, if we had no explanation, material or otherwise, for consciousness, you don't then get to say, oh, therefore we can go leaping to the supernatural and claim that it's justified. Meanwhile, in addition to all that, you called in to give the logical reason for believing in a God. Even if there was something supernatural, and that something supernatural is the cause for our consciousness, that doesn't in any way demonstrate that that supernatural thing is God. So you are trying to skip about 20 steps based on your own personal dismissal of the limits of materialism to currently explain things that you don't understand.
Okay, I mean, a couple points here again. I mean, would you argue that bacteria have a brain?
You know,
Paul, did I say that all animals have brains or all animals are conscious? No, you don't have to answer it. The answer is no. I don't know whether or not.
Okay, so are they conscious?
I'm sorry, I don't know why you're fucking speaking right now. I don't know, nor is it relevant whether or not bacteria are conscious. There are other animals that are conscious. All of the other great apes are conscious. My reptiles are conscious. My cat's conscious. All of those things are conscious. So the fact that you both got confused reason and ration and now go leaping towards bacteria in order to highlight something that is dubious at best, instead of actually dealing honestly with the question, means that I surrender. Austin, Paul is all yours.
I only brought up bacteria because you made the claim that all animals that are conscious
no, sir, I did not
brain.
make that. No, sir, I did not make that claim. If you were better at listening, you would have realized I did not make that claim. I'll rewind to double check.
And Paul, I think that it's actually neither here nor there. I don't think it actually matters because what Matt did say is, I don't know whether or not bacteria is conscious, and it doesn't really matter. What the point was, you made the claim that only humans experience consciousness, and that our ability to, in your words, ration, but I think what you meant was reason, is evidence of a God. But Matt was just trying to explain that we witness consciousness all over the place. I mean, when quantum physicists talk about the double slit experiment, there are people who theorize that it's evidence that even molecules and tiny experience consciousness and have some kind of ability to self-determination. But there's all different kinds of theories on where consciousness arises from, what it actually is. Could there be a consciousness to planets and to nature itself? We don't actually know the answers to these things, but none of these questions, you don't get to say, because we don't have a way to test all of this stuff empirically, therefore God. That's not a logical process. You called in saying you have a logical explanation that should lead us to believing in God, and being able to say we don't understand everything there is to understand about the phenomenon of consciousness is not it does not, ipso facto result in a logical explanation for the existence of a literal God. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So a couple things again. I never claimed that just because we're conscious that's the reason for God. I said it's our logical faculties and our rationality that point to it, and of course our consciousness too. Because if I wasn't conscious, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you.
How do they
I
point
think all
to
of
it,
those
though?
together, because blind random physical processes of evolution don't lead us to having this. I mean, why are we having?
Why not?
Does it serve having this conversation if, in an evolutionary standpoint, like me and you talking about the existence of a supernatural creature?
I don't
How does that
know,
serve
and
us in our evolutionary quest?
I don't know, and I don't care, and it doesn't work as evidence. Like it's there. There's nothing logical about
But
saying
you're an
because
evolutionary
we're having.
biologist.
No, I'm not. That you're thinking of Forrest. I don't know, and I don't care why we're having this conversation. What I'm saying is like the fact that you and I are capable of having this conversation. I don't know how we come to be. I don't know why I'm not a dolphin. I don't know why you're not a praying mantis. I don't know why we're both. Okay.
I did
I don't know
not.
why
I did not hang up on him.
Yeah.
He ran away
Okay.
when he realized he had no fucking clue who he was talking to or what he was talking about. By the way, I did go back. I rewound and re-listened and wrote down what I said word for word. We are conscious, and by the way, so are other animals. At no point did I say, so are all other animals. Paul's a sloppy thinker and a sloppy listener and a sloppy viewer who seems to think you were Forrest. And also, I'm pretty sure we could call Forrest right now and ask him to address Paul's question, because Forrest, as an evolutionary biologist, also probably would not care at all about whether or not consciousness has arisen in other beings or any of that stuff with regard to, is it evidence of the supernatural?
Exactly. That's the thing is it's like cool. Like human beings have the ability to reason and use logic and have philosophical conversations. Amazing. Why? There are any number of reasons why you could theorize why that would be evolutionarily advantageous for our species to be able to do that. And I think that you can make the argument that storytelling, I talk about this a lot on this show, that storytelling is a very kind of seemingly uniquely human feature in all of the species that we observe on Earth. And it's sort of the way that we've established the boundaries around which tribes we align with and find home with and find safety with and security with. And we have these shared cultural traditions of passed on stories and things like that. And it was a way for us to contextualize our existence and make sense of, and sort of pass on stories of like about what's dangerous for us and what's safer for us and things like that. There are all different kinds of arguments you can make, but I don't see how any of it results in a logical pathway to explaining God. As you said, Matt, you're skipping so many steps by just saying, because humans are smart, the only possible explanation is a supernatural being divined it to be that way.
This is God of the gaps. And if he'd have stuck with, if he'd have skipped past consciousness, because there is what's known in philosophical circles, the hard problem of consciousness. We don't have a full understanding or explanation for it at all. And so when we say that the current evidence suggests that consciousness is an emergent property from matter in particular states, a particular type of matter, we're saying, like with all scientific proposed explanations, this is what the evidence suggests. Science doesn't make proclamations of truth. It doesn't say, this is the way it is. It says, all of the available evidence is consistent with this particular model. And we're going to go with this particular model as a tentative, revisable position until a better one comes along. And you know what's never going to be a better one? Well, we don't know how this happened, so it must be God. That's literally what Paul was advocating for. It had nothing to do with consciousness or reason. Paul could have picked any subject that he didn't understand or didn't accept, or that humanity doesn't understand or doesn't accept, and just say, well, I know the answer is probably God. That's God of the gaps. That's an attempt to fill gaps in our knowledge and understanding with God as if it explains something when it absolutely doesn't. Because we explain things in terms of other things that we understand. You can't solve a mystery by appealing to a bigger mystery. You're not going to solve, why the giraffe's laryngeal nerve runs from its brain down into its rib cage, down that full neck, around its heart, and then back. We say that's consistent with evolution following the path of least resistance and being efficient. But can we show exactly why it happened? No. We think we can. We have really good understandings of genetics and morphology, so much so that I breed reptiles. We just got new eggs last night. And I know some of the genes of the parents, both the mother and the father. And so I know what the odds are and can calculate the odds of a variety of different things coming out. But the fact that that nerve seems odd, it certainly seems odd and inconsistent with the proposition that it was designed by an intelligent being, and is more evidence that it was an evolutionary process unguided by intelligence that was looking for efficiency. But if you were to say, yeah, but we really don't know that, and I don't buy that, therefore I think God did it. Okay, well, how did you rule out that Satan did it to fuck with us, to give us a curiosity? Oh, because God wouldn't allow that. Really? Which God wouldn't, and maybe your religion doesn't have a Satan in it. Maybe. It's bizarre to me because there are presuppositional apologists that use God as a grounding for reason. People like, well, I'm going to dig into names. We talked about John Lennox today on stream, so that's why it's in my head. But Paul didn't do any of that. Paul just says, we're the only beings who are conscious. No, we're not. All of the other great apes are conscious. Every animal in my house is conscious. And every animal in my house, every one of the animals that I count among the animals in my house, all the lizards, all the rodents, and the other mammals, they reason, can solve problems. And we know that, at least amongst the other great apes, they have a sense of fairness, which means they grasp abstract concepts as well. Hey, you paid him with fruit and you gave me a nut. I want the fruit. And they'll throw a little fit because raisins are sweet. And they're mad that they didn't get what somebody else got. There are real big problems and mysteries to solve. You're not solving any of them by saying, oh, I don't accept that, therefore I think it points to the supernatural, while simultaneously acknowledging that there is not, and you think cannot be, evidence to confirm the supernatural. Oh, I didn't say there wasn't evidence for the supernatural. I said there wasn't material evidence for supernatural. Yes, you need to go learn about the nature of evidence, because if you're talking about something that manifests in the material world, it necessarily must be detectable with empirical evidence for it to manifest in the world. This is why the other day I asked the caller Wednesday night, the guy who completely busted my Zen, hey, does your God interact with reality in any detectable way? And his response is, well, it depends on what you mean by reality. And that's the point at which I gave up.
Thanks for watching that clip. Hey, we're trying to do some data research about whether or not our callers successfully proved that God existed. If they didn't, don't forget to like and subscribe. That's how we know they failed. But if you don't like and subscribe, you're saying that they succeeded. So you're saying that by liking and subscribing, you will be affirming that you are an atheist. Hey, what else should they do?
I don't know. Maybe go to patreon.com/calltheline and donate some of their hard-earned money.
Like and subscribe.